So in the early days of the war between the US, Israel, and Iran, my colleagues and I started seeing a lot of these videos that were filmed on US military bases and also foreign bases where the US operates in the Gulf and the Middle East. And they showed a number of Iranian, usually drone strikes, on key infrastructure. And then not too long after that, we started seeing a stream of Iranian satellite imagery that came out of Iranian state media that were then filtering down through social media. And these images claim to show very mass swaths of destruction at these bases that the US operates out of. And normally what we would do is we would hit these up against American satellite imagery. But the US government requested for American satellite companies to restrict the release of this imagery in the Middle East and the Gulf. Not even restrict it, but even to retroactively remove images going back to early March. And also US officials weren't talking a whole lot about specific attacks on these US bases.
I mean, the best defense is a good offense.
And when they did speak, they said the air defenses were working as designed.
Our air defenders are operating at the very top of their game. I couldn't be prouder.
We wanted to cut through the allegations and the talking points and understand the reality of the damage. And so we couldn't just take this Iranian satellite imagery on face value. We had to actually verify it, cross-reference it, and all that. So what we did was we collected all these images that the Iranians released. These are dozens and dozens of images from quite a few different countries. And then we looked at European satellite companies, which did not have similar restrictions on the release of imagery. So this, for example, is in Saudi Arabia. This is the Prince Sultan Air Base, where the US operates out of. And here's the Iranian image right here, where you see there's 12 buildings right here in the before, and then you see about 4 or 5 of them have been destroyed in the after image. And then we take the exact same location in this imagery from a European provider, and it's identical, right? I mean, you look at it's the exact same buildings destroyed, the same pattern, same location. And we did this across the board. We did this with dozens of images. We didn't find even one of them that was fake. Overall, we found that Iran and Iranian-backed militias had attacked 18 different military sites in 7 different countries that the US operates out of. Other news organizations have reported similar amounts of damage, but we found that in addition to large US bases in the region, even sites where the US had small or temporary presence were struck. US Central Command declined to comment on our findings. This is the widest ranging attack on US military sites in the region ever. Some of these Iranian strikes killed American service members. A strike on a makeshift command post in Kuwait at a port killed 6 American service members, and a strike in Saudi Arabia killed 1. So we took all this imagery we compiled, we sent them to a number of defense experts to put all this into context. And most experts that we spoke to said these attacks on these military sites did not hamper the US's offensive capabilities in Iran. But our analysis does show that there are new vulnerabilities in America's security posture in the region. And back in March, my colleagues at the Times reported that many American bases in the region were evacuated. As we looked at the satellite imagery, we saw that these were fairly precise drone attacks across the entire US footprint in the Middle East. So, for example, here in Bahrain, this is the US 5th Fleet's base and also the US Navy's headquarters in the Middle East. There were attacks on the communications infrastructure here in the northern part of the base. So you see right here, there's some radomes, satellite dishes, and also down here, also some larger warehouses too, that were hit by Iranian drone strikes. This radome right here, a little bit northeast of this baseball field, was hit in a one-way drone attack. And it's not just these giant bases that are being attacked. Down a little bit further south in Bahrain, there's a joint base from the Bahrainis and the Americans where they work together to combine air defense. And there were 3 attacks here from the Iranian forces. There are 2 here on a radar site, very, very expensive radar system. So you see the Shah right here. And one a little bit west of here, either a warehouse or a hangar. I was hit by a pretty precise attack here that took out the roof. And this is out of the Gulf as well too. So if you look up north in Syria, there's an airfield up in the northeast of the country where the US has been operating lately. They pulled out in mid-April, but they were operating here for a few months. And Iranian-backed militias targeted this base repeatedly in March and April. But Iran claimed this attack took out US barracks. In fact, these are actually just grain storage structures. So this shows that even when the satellite image is accurate, the claim needs to be checked. In a Camp Victory outside of Baghdad in Iraq, there were Iranian-backed militias that launched drone attacks and took out about 6 or 7 different buildings. There's a warehouse that was hit. There was drone footage actually released by the Iranian-backed militia that carried out the attacks. This drone video is obviously used as propaganda footage, but it helps you understand the nature of their attacks. They flew around Camp Victory for a few minutes, and they eventually hit a warehouse, they've hit shelters, they hit fuel tanks, radar system, and they even took out a Black Hawk helicopter at one point. The total cost of these attacks is difficult to estimate. But the loss of the aircraft of these bases likely ranges around $1 billion, according to analysts from the Center for Strategic International Studies, a nonpartisan research center. They also said that a single radar system damaging Jordan costs about $500 million to repair or to replace. Experts that we spoke to said that the American air defense systems in place at their bases across the Gulf had around a 90% interception rate ideally. But even at 90%, there still leaves 10% of Iranian drones and missiles that can get through the air defense shield. And this may pose a problem for the United States. With its large physical footprint in the Middle East, Iran is able to send cheap drones towards these bases. What used to be an asset for the United States may also now be liability.